This week, we're talking about creating emergency information pages to keep your visitors informed during a storm or natural disaster.
This is Better Radio Websites, the podcast for radio professionals who want to see their website generate more traffic and revenue. Each week, your host, Jim Sherwood, and his special guests give you time-tested tips and secret tricks to ensure your radio station dominates digital in your market. Here we go.
Hi, it's Jim. Welcome to Better Radio Websites, the podcast that wants to help you get more visitors and the most revenue from your radio station website. Well, this past week, I'm sure you know, Hurricane Ian ripped through Florida and up the East Coast. And just before the storm, a few stations asked us to jump in and help quickly create some emergency information pages so that they could refer to them on air and over social media to help get essential news out to their local listeners. And that got me to thinking, do you have an emergency information page for any type of natural disaster that could potentially affect your listeners? It's likely that a hurricane's not going to hit Kansas, but they have their fair share of tornadoes. Tornadoes may not frequent places like upstate New York, but those locations up in the northern U.S., they have their fair share of blizzards and other natural events. Other places in the U.S., they may experience long periods of drought or be susceptible to wildfires, like out there on the West Coast. So if you have any natural events happening that could be affecting your listeners, it's a great idea to have emergency information pages on your radio station website that you can refer to and give essential information from whenever it's needed. It's great for your listeners, and it provides you with an in-house location to refer to on air instead of directing your listeners to somewhere else online. So let's look at some elements of an emergency information page that you may want to include on your radio station website. Now, these may not be perfectly related to your specific area and natural event, but the hope is that they will give you a basis to start planning and getting these pages created for your site. And before we jump in, it's a good idea to have these elements on as fewer pages as possible. We're going to mention 6 different elements today, but that doesn't mean that we should have 6 different pages on our website and then the main page just is a link to all of those pages. We want to get emergency information out as quickly as possible, and that means we need to do it in the fewest clicks possible. So if you can have all of this on one page, that's going to really minimize the effort involved with your visitor. Number 1 is Twitter and Facebook feeds. Many municipalities out there update the public by posting to their Twitter or Facebook feeds because they know this is the quickest way to get information out. Embed these feeds directly on your emergency information pages so that your page becomes the hub of everything that your listener may need. The feeds that you may want to include on your page include directly from FEMA, your state emergency management agency, your regional NOAA weather location, state weather organization, and even your local police. Almost all of these will have either a Twitter and or Facebook feed, and so you can put those feeds directly on your pages using those embed codes. Additionally, you may want to consider embedding an RSS feed from another news source if their information is more up to date than what you can provide. I know a lot of stations out there, they're voice tracked 24/7, and so those voice trackers can't jump in and give information like that on the air, but you can keep more up-to-date information online. And these embedding of social media widgets and this RSS feed from other places, that totally goes against what you should do on a daily basis of linking off-site and stuff like that. When it's an emergency situation like a hurricane or a tornado or blizzard or wildfire, all of that goes out the window. It's getting the best information to your listeners as quickly as possible. The second thing that you should have on your emergency information page is like current weather, radar, and alerts. Of course, we're referring to a weather-related event. If you have weather-related emergencies like tornadoes, blizzards, hurricanes, try to include the current radar image directly on this information page rather than having them go back to your weather page back and forth to get the radar information. It gives them a visual sense of where the weather event is happening. Alerts are also helpful in the case of storms because the alerts from the National Weather Service, they typically give the location and the forecast track of the storm, including towns and neighborhoods. All right, the third thing to include on your emergency information pages is live video reports. If your radio station partners with a local TV station, Ask them about embedding their live feed on your station information pages. Unless you have live people at the radio station that is tracking the storm, the TV station is likely giving their report. They've broken off from programming and they're fully live looking at a live radar image. This is going to be better information than you can provide unless you have people at the radio station with a radar and giving locations and streets and stuff like that. If you have that, then disregard this one. But if you don't, this partnership with the TV station of embedding their live feed directly on your information page could be very beneficial to you. And all you have to do is get that embed code from the TV station well ahead of time. You're not likely to get that information either hours before or much less during a disaster. All right, you can also embed TV station graphics within your emergency and even your weather pages. We've seen partnerships where the TV station radar and their 7-day outlook and all the forecast information is actually updated on graphics that sit on the TV station server. And what we do is we hot link or we embed that image that is resting on the TV station server onto the weather page. And so each time they update it, because that updates their app or some other things, then every place else gets the update as well, including your radio station website. So that is something to consider also if you have a television station partnership. All right, the fourth thing is local shelter information. You want to include these on your emergency information pages also, because if you've never been involved in a natural disaster, you probably don't know that many people out there can be left without shelter for long periods of time. So include local shelter information on your emergency information pages as well. And this is one of those areas that might need to be revised more often, because as shelters fill up, your list of available shelters can get smaller. And so during a crisis, you don't want folks out there looking for shelter, looking at your list and saying, oh, okay, let's go to this place. Oh, no, that place is closed. And then they have to be turned away and go to another shelter. And then that could put them in danger. And so try to keep that list as mostly current as you can. All right, number 5 is checklist. They're always useful, but try not to go overboard, because there are a lot of checklists out there that you can do, like caring for your pets, all of the important documents that you need to have, your first aid kit, everything to take with you. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, but only present the most needed information on your emergency information pages and then link to the rest of them. Our government websites, ready.gov and the National Weather Service, they have amazing guides that can get you started and that you can pick from, and we have links to those in the show notes. And number 6, important phone numbers and links. Now, your emergency information page should not be a big, long directory of links and phone numbers. However, including these numbers and links to local municipalities, first responders, hospitals, and schools and stuff like that, that's a great idea as long as it's accompanied by all of this other useful information that we've mentioned here. And do be careful to limit this list, because if your page looks like a directory, then you can expect people to skip it and just Google the number rather than spending 5 seconds to actually look down the list and find what they're looking for. It's just a psychological thing. They won't look through the list because they think that they can Google it a whole lot faster. So that's our list of things that you should have on your emergency information page. I'm sure that you can think of others depending on the natural disaster that may affect your visitors. Now, once you have your page created, should you sell sponsorships on this page? I think absolutely. Think of everything that your locals need to prepare ahead of a natural event. Storm shelters, generators, snow plows, disaster insurance, building supplies, roofing, survival kits. What else can you think of? I mean, there's a whole list of potential advertisers for your emergency page right there. Sponsorships can easily be yearly commitments, even though your natural event, they only have seasons. When I worked for Clear Channel, a tornado shelter company sponsored our tornado emergency information page down here in Mississippi. I will tell you that the client was reluctant to sign a yearly commitment for the sponsorship page, but they did for a year just to try it out. And their doubts were kind of justified for most of the year until it got to tornado season. Then the exposure and the traffic they received made it well worth their investment. It worked so well for them that they increased their spending to become the title sponsor of the page, and that lasted several years. So it can really pay off for sponsors that are willing to get on with your emergency information pages. All right, so wrapping up, the right time to create your emergency information pages is not just before the event. Take the time to create these pages now, well before the storm. The more useful information that you can provide on this page, and try to keep it concise, the more valuable it will be to your visitor. And you'll more likely find great sponsors to jump on board with it as well. I hope this information helps you. Please leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast to ensure that more radio professionals can find us. Have an awesome week online making your radio station website better. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Better Radio Websites. Inspired by today's episode? Be sure you are subscribed and share this episode with a friend. Visit skyrocketradio.com/podcasts for more episodes as well as show notes for this episode. Need help starting or making your station website better? Visit skyrocketradio.com.